Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Shunting Stories. So this is my online journal of getting back into railway models after probably 20 years. So thank you for those people that viewed my first video. That's greatly appreciated. So let's kick off today's segment. So we're looking at a few different things today. We're looking at some buildings and some rolling stock in two different scales. So let's kick off where we left off last video. So we've got this small little signal box from Gauge Master. So this is the first plastic model I made, and let's just see how I went about colouring this one and painting it up. So they come from the factory as fairly basic kits, so if you're a beginner this is a fantastic option to look for. So they're sort of known as Gauge Master or Kestrel kits. They traditionally come in this sort of N scale and also HO or double O. As I said, this is a signal box. Another one is a small station or house I've got here, and that's how it comes from the factory. So fairly basic. Got some coloured plastic parts out of the packet. So to take it from sort of that very basic look, looks almost like a sort of a toy rather than a model. What I've done here is use some Tamiya paints. These were actually left over from a completely different project, but I thought the colours suited this. So the two colours I used for most of this little model was XF71 and XF23. Just very lightly applied that to the plastic and used some very basic Tamiya modelling brushes, not too expensive. If you're a beginner like myself, Amazon and places like that are fantastic for modelling supplies. I chose a Tamiya kit that comes with 4 different types of brushes, and I might touch on that on a future video. So they're the kind of colours I went for, like a really nice muted sort of lime green and sort of a mid grey blue. It's known as light blue. So they're 2 colours I used for that. Yeah, very simple application, sort of a few coats. I did the roof, the side, the glass is always included in the kit, and just some very light weathering on that bottom section there. So I hope you can see that there. So that was my first N scale model kit, glued up and applied some very basic paint. So I'll show you a layout that I've actually applied that to since I made this kit, but I thought this is a fantastic option to show the beginner of where you can start. They range from sort of $12 through to about $25 Australian, depending if you get it on sale or not. So that's great kits to look out for. So further to that, on the subject of buildings, I'm also really into vintage kits. So I traditionally look for second-hand models that don't have any paint on them. This is let's have a look at a Volma kit. So if you search on eBay, you can look that up. They're sort of European or continental in styling. Again, just simple coloured plastic out of the box. This is probably 70s or 80s era. Some people don't like the plastic look, but I kind of like the 20th century modern styling of these. There's some lovely detail on there, and I picked this up secondhand. So these are the kind of themes that I go for in my projects. My eyes aren't the best, so getting ready-made secondhand kits are fantastic, especially if you're getting into the hobby. You can pick up a few different little buildings for your first project to kick things off, and set the sort of the theme for your layout. So my recommendation is always try and go secondhand first in whichever scale you want to model, and that you can get a feel for what you like and then buy new kits from there. Continuing on the vintage theme from the little signal box, we've got a matching church here. Still some just very basic coloured plastic. Some people sort of say these look like toys on the layout, but I really like the simple styling. You can of course apply your own paints. You could use these Tamiya paints on this model if you wanted to, but I really like just keeping it factory standard, so to speak, just straight out how they were designed initially, from the 70s, and just finding really nice examples. So if you're looking for something like this yourself, obviously look for things that aren't broken off, windows are still in place, no glue residue, and if they've got a little bit of dust on them, which is common for second-hand models off a railway model, just some very lukewarm water with soap gets rid of any dust, and you can also use a brush to get into some details if you need, just to clean them up. So that's another end scale. So we've got a church there and a really nice little signal box. This brings us on to another scale. So this is HO or 00. So again, sort of vintage. A lot of the vintage kits come with this base. Some people don't like the look of those, but what I really like about them is on your layout you can trace that shape onto your board, and then whatever scenery you can paste in or glue down can go up to that edge. So it's a nice little border for your buildings, especially if you don't want to glue these down permanently. You can just trace them down and use that as a reference for a border. So I've got like a sort of a European sort of bungalow here, or a cottage or barn of some sort. Again, nice condition, the chimney's in place, and that's ready to go on a layout. So something like that would probably be around the $10, $15 mark, depending on the condition and where you buy it from. So do shop around. And continuing on the theme of the buildings, we've got another sort of 00 little shed. So quite bright colours. A lot of the vintage kits are quite bright, so you can dull them down with paints if you want to, but I kind of like the look and feel of these, especially with some vintage rolling stock. It sort of pairs up really nicely. So moving on to that subject, we've got a Lima rolling stock here. So this is almost new old stock that I picked up very recently at a shop. Again, Lima 00 and HO is very basic sort of rolling stock, but what I do like about them is the simple styling. If they do have a bit of dust on them, you can just do the lukewarm water with a brush and clean them up really nicely. And similar to buildings, if you're looking to buy these second-hand, key things to look for are if the lettering's intact, markings on the side, nice clean rolling wheels, nothing broken, and of course the couplings front and back are in place. So this is a really nice example, and I picked this up for around the $10 in a bundle. So yeah, I'd suggest Lima sort of 00 is quite basic, but it is fantastic little option to get into the hobby. Not expensive, and again, if you're building a layout from scratch, it's a good option to get a little bit of a theme going with both your vintage rolling stock for the 70s and 80s, also some matching buildings there. So you soon get a little bit of a village or a community happening through that. Further to rolling stock, I thought we'd look at some of the customization I first did getting into the hobby. So these are also Lima, but these are N scale. You can see the difference in scale. So if you're a beginner, that gives you an idea of scale and what you might want to pick for the space that you have. So here we've got a little Lima carriage or open wagon, I suggest they're called. And what I've done is just choose some very basic items from the Savers or cheap shop or $1 shop, depending on where you live in the world. And they've got just very cheap timber dowels and blocks. They come in bags of 50 to 100 for only a few dollars. And depending on the scale, they work fantastic to customize some really basic wagons and rolling stock. So here I've just used some sort of matchstick or circular pipes, just cut them down to size on a little timber base there, and they've come up really nicely on the N scale. Also here, these are just really simple little cubes that came in a packet. They happen to be the right size. Whether they look right for N scale doesn't really matter, as long as you're having fun with your models and coming up with different ideas. That's the main thing. Also, what we have here is a coal wagon. So I'll put in a little base here with some foam and just use some little bit of ballast with paint to make a little shim, and pack it into size, and goes inside the coal wagon there nicely. So just painted the ballast with a little bit of black paint, and if you can see there on the camera, just a little bit of silver metallic on the top there to bring out the coal. So yeah, that's a nice little idea, and not difficult to do. If you've got lots of leftover ballast, you can not just put it on your track, but make some little coal wagons, and super lightweight, so you can move it between different pieces of rolling stock. And lastly, on the customization, we've got a really nice little Kato open wagon here that I'll talk about another stage which kit this comes from, but also did the same sort of treatment here. I used a piece of foam, black PVC foam, cut to size, and just a little bit of balsa wood, and then some very cheap matchsticks cut down to size and made into a little timber load there, and just with some PVA glue. You don't need to get expensive modelling glue, you can just use craft glue, and that's just sized up and placed inside there, and makes a nice little open wagon into something really quite nice for your layout. So you don't need expensive hobbling materials, just think outside the box and use different items that you have got lying around, is the way to go, especially if you're starting out in the hobby. So there's a whole range of subjects we covered to there, so some end scale buildings, some 00, and some introduction to rolling stock for the beginner. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Doug and Mike from Budget Model Railways. They really got me into the hobby. I thoroughly enjoy your videos, guys, so please keep them coming. You've inspired me a lot to get stuck into model trains, and use your thoughts and your ideas of, you don't need to spend lots of money, but you can just think outside the box and pick up some second-hand items and create some different things for your layout that gives you enjoyment. So please reach out to those guys. I'll put their details in the description below, and please check out their YouTube channel if you're also new to railways like myself. So thank you everyone for listening. My name's Hadyn, this is Shunting Stories, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.